Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Origins Mosquitor. Evil, energy, draining, insectoid, yes! Finally, he is here. I've been patiently waiting for my pre-order to arrive from Big Bad Toy Store. If you guys have been following me for any time at all, you probably know that Mosquitor is my all-time favorite Masters of the Universe character. I love the vintage action figure. It was always a favorite of mine growing up, and I have been singing the praises of that toy for years and years. So of course, I am completely over the moon that we are getting him in Origins so early on, and that he's getting the deluxe treatment. What? That blows my mind. As you can see, Mosquitor is in the larger deluxe packaging, complete with this absolutely gorgeous artwork up here on the top corner. This is actually really cool because the vintage Mosquitor came out late enough in the line that he also had the artwork on the front of the card back. So this actually is a really great throwback, but also because all of the deluxe figures also have the artwork on the front. But as you can see, not only does he come with a mini comic, not only does he have the Evil Horde sticker logo on the front, but Mosquitor has got an alternate head, swappable hand, and an extra brand new accessory. Unreal that a character like Mosquitor is getting this kind of treatment. I love it. When we flip this around to the back side of the packaging, you can see that not only do we have this amazing cross-sell, but we once again have absolutely gorgeous artwork at the top of the package by Axel Jimenez and Fetch Francisco. I love the amazing artwork that those guys do on the packaging, and it's so great to see my boy Mosquitor get that treatment. Check him out in the swamps there, draining the energy from Fisto. Love the background details, like look at Battle Bones is totally in the background there. How amazing is that? I love it. And then, of course, down below that, we also have the cool little action feature spots that show you that he does include the blood pumping action feature. Oh man, I am so excited to get this guy ripped open, so let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in and check him out. So packed in with the figure, we get the brand new mini comic Horde Plague. Look at this. Mosquitor gets a starring role in a brand new mini comic. Oh my gosh, this is absolutely amazing. Yeah, take that, Man-at-Arms. Take that. That's so incredibly cool. I absolutely love it. So great to see the mini comics continuing in the set. Let's get on to the figure. Alright, so we've got Mosquitor outside of the packaging. If we bring in the tape measure, you can see that this figure actually stands over 6 inches tall, but it's because of his big giant head. The figure itself should be right around the same scale as the other figures in the line. He just has that larger noggin that definitely makes him stand a little bit taller. See, so if I put He-Man in here with him, he definitely looks like he's towering over He-Man, but it mostly appears to be because of the head. It looks like, yeah, the body itself, like shoulders, they are standing at the same height, but that head definitely is going to put him up a little bit taller than the rest of those figures. And this guy looks really great. Now, all in all, he looks a lot like his vintage action figure, capturing a lot of the same details from that. He's got the purple belt with the silver painted triangle right there on the front. He's got the really weird tech-like boots. They're like the big square boots with the red painted triangles on there. Now, these are molded in sort of a silver plastic. They do kind of have that marbleized swirl in them. You can really kind of see that on the sides. I don't know, like I've always kind of had mixed feelings about that marbleized kind of look on metallic plastics. That looks okay. I'm not like terribly against that. But you can see like there's one spot on the right boot where it's just really, really noticeable. It stands out a lot more over here than it does on the opposite side. But I love how clean this guy looks. I love how colorful he is, like with the silver, the very bright red of his head there, and of course the blood in his chest. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is that his overall torso seems kind of skinny, and the window where the blood is very small compared to the vintage action figure. Mosquitor had a much bigger body on the vintage one, probably to accommodate for that feature, but that also gave him a really big blood window on his chest. And I kind of miss that. I wish that this one here was a little bit bigger. I don't want to sound like I'm not grateful for the actual liquid blood in there, because that really does make Mosquitor, but I don't like that it's so small. I wish it was a little bit bigger. The other thing that really stands out on this is the 3 holes that are inside. Now, I assume that those are air holes for the pumping feature, but there were no blatant holes like that present on the vintage toy, and those do just really stand out. Now, I do like how there's a bit of a 3D texture in the background that kind of looks like a drippy blood back there in the back, and those holes, it's fine. I can look past it, because I do really like that we've got the real liquid in there. You can see how it kind of sloshes around, which is really, really nice, and just like on the vintage figure, there is a button on his back, and when we pump that button, look at that. Oh, it oozes the blood through his chest, and it looks incredible. Oh, it's so incredibly satisfying. People have asked me a lot over the years, why Mosquitor? Why is Mosquitor your favorite figure from Masters of the Universe? He just feels so different and almost out of place. And you know what the answer is? It's this. When I was a kid, this right here completely captured my imagination. I loved this action feature. That blood pumping thing never got old to me. I pushed that button constantly. I thought it was so cool to just look at that blood window on his chest. I was always so mesmerized by it. That right there is part of what makes Mosquitor so very cool. And it's so awesome to see that classic Mattel action feature return with the Origins figure. So, let's go ahead and talk articulation on this guy. That head is on the same style ball joint as all the other figures. It is just a bigger head there. It does feel a little wobbly, but I don't know if it's just because it's like a really big head. I will say, it doesn't like flop around. Like you can see, it's standing up just fine when I raise it up. I can lower it. It's not falling down from the weight, so that is really nice. It's a bit of a pliable plastic on the nose tip here, but it's not overly gummy, so hopefully it's not going to have a lot of drooping over time. The shoulders are the same as before. They can go upwards, outwards, inwards there. They are not removable, and I assume it's because of the action feature in his torso, but it also kind of makes me wish that torso had the bigger blood window. It's kind of the same way I felt about Battle Armor, He-Man, and Skeletor in this line. I wish that the battle damage was bigger on those. I definitely wish that the blood window was bigger on Mosquitor. Feels like his torso should just be a little bit wider, more like the vintage action figure. You got swivels at the elbow, single joint at the elbow, swivels at the wrists, hinges at the wrists. The wrists also pop out of socket here, and which we do have one interchangeable hand. You can see right now he's got like a closed fist at the left, so you can swap out for another gripping hand. That way you have 2 gripping hands on the figure, so that way you can interchange his blaster between hands. Otherwise, the torso can just swivel left and right. That is still removable, so that's pretty impressive that the blood feature is still intact and you can take the torso off still. That's pretty nice. Then the legs can go outwards with those ball hinge joints there. Forwards, backwards, swivels at the knee, a bend at the knee, a swivel at the boot cut. The boots are removable, the big clunky weird sci-fi boots, and then the ankles can move forwards and backwards as well as rock side to side. All in all, he feels really good. Articulation feels solid on this guy, matches up with what we've seen with the other figures in the line. So now we have ourselves a vintage style Mosquitor that's a little bit more articulated than the vintage. Pretty cool stuff. So I showed you the interchangeable hand. He also comes with the iconic purple blaster. This is really cool because it looks a lot like the vintage, but I want to do a comparison time with the vintage, specifically because the vintage Mosquitor gun is pretty obscure. Now, vintage Mosquitor himself actually goes for quite a bit of money these days, but his gun is one of those rare accessories that's hard to find. So over here on the right is the vintage gun. You can see it is a darker purple than the new gun. It also has, the Mattel Inc. date here, 1986 is printed on the actual gun. The new one doesn't have any of that printing. Also, the details are slightly different. Like on the vintage one, it's a little more concave on the end here. Well, it's a little more convex there. It's like kind of sticking outwards. So it's very similar, but it is a brand new sculpt. They didn't just remold the vintage one. So that's really good for anybody out there who's worried about mixing those up. But this is also cool because for those of you that don't care if you have an original, you can always display this with your vintage one if you want to do that. So pretty cool stuff. The plastics also feel different. The new one is a lot softer. You can see much more gummy on the handle than on the vintage one. That one also, well, that one's pretty gummy too. This one does feel like a different consistency though. Like the vintage one feels a little heavier than the newer one here. So we can get that crazy blaster in his hands, either one of his hands there. And of course that completes this very funky look for this wonderful character. Now, since he's deluxe, he's got a few more added accessories. One of those is an interchangeable head, which, oh my gosh, this is the first time we have ever had anything like this for Mosquitor. It's blowing my mind. So again, you can pop the head right off the ball joint there. We can easily replace with this other one. So this one is sort of like an unhelmeted head. So if you've ever wondered if that's a helmet on his head, this sort of answers that question. This one is textured. It's got this very creepy texture to it. Also, the eyes are yellow instead of white. We don't have the metal tip at the end there. And if you're wondering what this is inspired by, well, my friends, this is inspired by Mosquitor's appearance in issue number 8 of the vintage Masters of the Universe Star comics. You could see him right there. It's a little more brown on the cover of that comic than it is red, but that's definitely where the shape and the non-helmeted look inspiration comes from. You can even see the little spikes kind of on the back ridge there. Everything about this looks very similar to the artwork in that comic. So I love this. I love that one of my all-time favorite characters is getting something brand new that he's never had before. And yes, this means you need more than one of these so that you can display both looks because they're both really cool. All right, the last accessory is that energy draining effect, which is really, really fun. So let me show you that this does clip on nicely to both of the heads. You can see it fits right over kind of the bill there of Mosquitor. Now, it is a little heavy, so it's going to weigh the head down, but if you actually attach this to a figure like you're supposed to, that doesn't really matter because that will hold the head up. So we're going to swap the heads out. But this is made of a bit of a pliable plastic here, which is really good. So that way it'll bend around the torso of another figure. But it's like kind of like this semi-translucent red. It's very cool. Let's pop on the regular Mosquitor head. Let's slide this over the front there. You can see it attaches to that as well. And yeah, let's bring in He-Man. Come on, He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Let's drain his energy. Oh my gosh, how incredibly cool is this? Man, that looks so awesome. Here, you just got to balance He-Man up here too. And we can get a great energy draining effect. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh my god, that is so incredibly cool. I'm seriously geeking out if you guys couldn't tell. All right, guys, it's comparison time. So I keep talking about that vintage Mosquitor action figure. Let's look at these two side by side. So you can see that they're very similar with their overall deco, but the big difference is in the actual torso. The vintage one is much bigger and has a bigger and much better looking blood window, if I'm being completely honest. And I feel like this is something important we've got to do. We've got to do a comparison time between the blood features. So you can see the new one there, and then we'll do the vintage one. Oh, see, like that bigger window, it just, I don't know, there's something a little bit more satisfying about seeing the blood running down. Also, it's worth noting that the background is a bit more of a white, like a brighter white color on the vintage, as opposed to this one here, which has more of kind of like a pinkish color to it there. The blood features are both great, though. Don't get me wrong. I think it's awesome. But you can also see what I'm talking about, those 3 added holes there. It's almost like they're putting extra bubbles in the new one there. There's plenty of bubbles in the vintage one, too. I don't know. Gosh, this feature is just so fun. If I don't stop, I'm going to just sit here. This is going to be the next 5 hours of this video. Is me just pumping the blood. All right, and here he is standing alongside the Masters of the Universe Classics version. Now, this was a plussed-up collector one, and don't get me wrong, I like it, and I was very excited when it came out, but the one thing that did always slightly bug me is that he did not have the blood-pumping action feature, because while I get that that line was more about good deco, sculpt, and articulation, man, sometimes the action features are what makes Masters of the Universe characters who they are, and Mosquitor is one of those characters. So once again, I am so incredibly glad that the Origins one did bring the feature back. So I'm a huge Mosquitor fan. I have to get nitpicky. There are things about this that I don't love as much as I wanted to. I wish that the blood window was bigger. I wish that the torso was a little bit wider. So little nitpicks like that, yes. However, I still think this is an incredibly fun figure, and seriously, it is blowing my mind that a character like Mosquitor, who's such like a C or D level character, or maybe even lower than that, a character that I felt like I was the only one who cared about just a decade ago. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there are lots of other Mosquitor fans and supporters out there, so I look at this as a victory for all of us, that we got this character who's not even one of the main characters in the line. He got the deluxe treatment, he's got alternate heads, he's got the blood pumping feature. Oh my gosh, he is absolutely incredible, and I am so happy that he is here in this line. This is amazing. So there you guys go. There is my total geek out over the Masters of the Universe Origins Mosquitor action figure. So this figure is starting to hit now. It's actually been hitting for a while on places like Amazon, but I had pre-ordered mine on Big Bad Toy Store, so I had to wait for it to get in stock there and ship. So I will link to them in the video description if you want to see if they still have them available to order for yourself. You're going to need at least one of these, probably two, since there's multiple heads. As far as I'm concerned, every He-Man collection needs a Mosquitor. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time.